Thank you. So, good morning, everybody. So, let me just start by saying I actually don't like the term AI. I think it's a poor explanation of what we're actually trying to do and what is the truth. If we actually take AI as a term and we take the science fiction AI, you know, consciously aware, well, the systems aren't consciously aware. Let me just put your mind to rest. But there is an awful lot of work that we are doing in really the term I prefer to use it is augmented intelligence. So we're actually using computer systems to add on and process massive amounts of data intelligently and learn from it and adapt it. That's a very different thing. You know, the skies are falling in, Skynet's not there, and all the rest of it, the world isn't coming to an end. But I think if we start to understand where it can practically be used, that's a really good start for us. So, you know, solving a cyber problem. Well, the problem that we have, I've worked, as you know, for a number of years in security, and I have to say, you know, it's all about as much respect for the bad guys as much as anything else. They're smart people. They're not stupid. They are using AI as much as we are today, also. So you have to understand that. Now, of course, they don't have the rules and regulations that we typically have to follow. You know, if I look even at our organization, you know, intellectual property has an intrinsic value. For a while I worked in cyber intelligence. They share information much, much better than we do. And we have to understand and accept that. So let's look at some of the security solutions today that actually use AI day to day. It's already in place. It's not just talking about the future. If we actually look at both from network, email, endpoint, and web, all these systems are using elements of AI in various different levels of maturity. Yeah? So if we have an intelligent system that is understanding, that is adapting itself, that is changing the parameters and regulations that it's trying to work within, automatically that could be determined as augmented intelligence. But of course, all of those have a part. We'd love to get to the bottom of this, the bottom point, predict and adapt to future threats. By the way, that's really, really difficult to do. You know, a good colleague of mine who actually runs our AI group or department, you know, he uses a really good analogy. He says, I can design a robot to make a cup of tea. He said, if I ask it to do anything else, it can't do it, or it won't do it. That's where AI is at as a maturity, and we have to understand that. We're really on the first steps of this journey. But of course, we have to start somewhere, and we have to use this and use the services and the intelligence and computational power that we have today and use it effectively. So if we actually just look, you know, detect and protect, enhance human behavior, automate repetitive tasks, all of these are just standard computational functions that we'd normally expect. But one of the biggest challenges we have is the amount of data that we have to process today. And it's a phenomenal amount of data. I can definitely say from a Fortinet perspective alone, you know, we have 2 million active devices collecting information. Now, I will define information for you. You know, information is just information until I give it context. Then it becomes intelligence. If I then give it relevance, it makes it actionable. That's the goal that I'm trying to get to here. And if the systems and augmented intelligence and machine learning can help me do that, that's a real big positive for us. So, as I said, you know, the bad guys are using it as much as we are. And they're not stupid. They know what they're doing. And as I say, some of the most intelligent people I've ever worked with used to be bad guys and actually came over and are good guys now. But we're looking at AI, fuzzy for zero-day mining. You know, they're already using this technology to obtain their own goals. And the one thing we have to remember with cyber criminals, they have a single common goal: make as much money as quickly and easily as possible. That's it. Yeah? Don't be confused. Don't believe everything, when we see it in Hollywood, when we're watching these guys sat in their dorms at night, hacking into the FBI, NSA. No, it's about money, and never forget it. And there's new technology coming through. We're now calling it swarm technology. Systems that are actively going out and reproducing themselves as they multiply. And the problem that we have today, time and time again, the number of systems that have no security or very little security built in from the ground up. They were designed to be functional. That is a risk. That is a risk to your business. It's a risk to all of us. And risk to me is not good or bad. It's just how much is acceptable. It's as simple as that. So what is driving the need for this? Well, you've heard me mention just the amount of data and the amount of events that we're having to process. So this is recently from our quarterly, global threat landscape report. And if you're actually looking, just counting the number of events, 100 billion security events have to be analyzed. Physically, we cannot do that. We have to use automated techniques. If I'm looking at the number of websites that we're having to process and understand, do they contain malware? Do they pose a risk to your business? Can we classify them? All of that requires elements of AI, augmented intelligence. Looking at the attack surface, IoT, targeting 80 platforms. IoT is a huge threat. There is a business driver for IoT to be connected. But we're dealing with technology that in some cases is over 20 or 30 years old. Yeah? We're dealing with technology in manufacturing. We're dealing with, if we look at IoT and the number of connected devices, 20 billion plus. That's a huge problem for us. And if they don't have security inbuilt, if they haven't been designed with a level of security, that is a risk to your business. So malware is evolving. It's complex. It's clever. Whatever barrier we put up, they'll try and obfuscate. They'll try and hide. They'll try and work around it. And we're constantly trying to second guess what they're going to do next. There is no crystal ball for this. If we could predict what they were going to do, I wouldn't be stood up here. I'd be in an island somewhere in the middle of the Caribbean, I think. But we can't predict it. We have to often wait to react to it. Because again, technology is moving fast, moving quickly, and we have to try and stay ahead, or at least keep up. Agile developments, hiding in plain sight, I heard about me talk about patching earlier. Patching is absolutely critical. But of course, patching is a reaction. We're reacting to human mistakes effectively, and they pose a risk. But is the patch more of a risk than the threat? And of course, that leads to delays. That is a window of opportunity for these guys. But AI hopefully will help us move forward. Looking at breaches and the CISO challenges, this is a recent report, 54% of CISOs view malware as a significant risk. And spyware, DDoS. I mean, I worked in DDoS for a number of years for the market leader. And, it is a difficult problem because they are constantly evolving and changing. And we're having to try and keep up with that. That is a challenge for us. So again, looking at motivation. What motivates these people? Everybody, as I say, they'll talk about nation state. It's a huge threat. And I don't have to name the states that we see as that threat. But second, organized crime. As I made the point earlier, understanding the threat that they pose, understanding the motivation, the flexibility, the ability to share information and develop tools really, really quickly. These are smart people. So, and interestingly enough, hacking for fun, hacking for profit, hacking for espionage, I always used to class it as mischievous, malicious, and criminal. But now we're coming up with new terms for that. These people, you know, have all the tools under the sun. And those number of tools that are available to them is growing day by day. So looking at detection evolution, how are we using AI to actually detect these malware, to detect the new threats to you? Well, of course, the majority of them were signature-based. But as we all know, signatures don't work every time. They'll catch the vast percentage because a lot of them aren't that smart, aren't that clever. And we can develop, you know, we have content pattern recognition methods today that will actually detect the majority of those threats and those issues. Then we have behavioral analysis. And I was working on behavioral systems probably about 10 years ago. And okay, they were quite basic. But really what I'm looking for is I'm not looking for 99% of the people. I'm looking at the 1% that does something different. That's my behavioral analysis. Behavioral analysis now has moved on. And what we're looking at now is AI systems that are detecting potentially risk or bad behavior. You know, if you're doing something, if you're plugging in a USB when you shouldn't be, if you're connecting to a website that we know has significant threats associated with it, those are black marks against your behavior. Now, nobody is saying you're definitely doing something bad, but if we can analyze that data and the amount of data and identify that's clear or measuring risk for us. But looking at the business cases, there's lots of things that we have to do. There's a whole host of threats associated. We're trying to solve a problem. Moving forward as well, looking at the customer, the use cases, you know, improving protection against these emerging threats. And also monitoring for compromised systems. AI has a significant part to play. But defining it, it's nothing new. It's been around, you know, since the 1930s, Alan Turing and the other thing. It's constantly evolving. Yeah? But we have to invest in it. We have to understand its capabilities and what it can't do as much as what it can do. Yeah? It is not a silver bullet to fix everything. It has its own limitations. So, finally, you know, looking at what defines an expert system, I think I've already given it. Information is information until you make it actionable intelligence. That's the goal that we're trying to do and use AI to help us get there. We use lots of different learning models, you know, supervised, unsupervised, and reinforcement. We're reiterating what we've already got. And then finally, looking at what we're trying to do, you know, create advanced neural systems to test, understand. We're also looking at search and beyond, different patterns of code and understanding malware behavior, and finally discovering obtuse malware patterns. Really, this is bad behavior that malware is doing. But most important, doing the right thing and doing the thing right is what we're trying to achieve. We're using AI in that manner, and hopefully we'll improve your own risk and security. Thank you.